Hello. I started doing these videos earlier this summer, and they were just kind of about things that I wanted to talk about. And it wasn't until I started teaching my class this fall that I realized that maybe this could be utilized for something beyond just things that I think about and or feel, and might be productive for people in the teaching profession. And because my current position, I work with soon to be teachers, pre-service teachers, and right now I am in charge of the practicum experience, which is their first real experience, field experience in schools. They've observed some schools before, but this is the first time they really get to get their feet wet and interact with students. And it's like the precursor to student teaching. And the course I teach kind of is married to that experience. And so I'm trying really hard to make it applicable. And so what I did is I started off by giving them a teaching self-efficacy scale, which self-efficacy is a term coined by Albert Bandura that deals with your ability to feel like you can complete a task. So it is a judgment about yourself and your skills. And the teaching self-efficacy is something I was very interested in a while when I was studying at UCR, and it's a judgment about your ability to teach and to perform certain teaching tasks. So I gave them a teaching scale and had them kind of go through it and say what are the things that they felt like that they weren't as strong in. And the number one thing that came up in the first meeting was classroom management. And so I thought this would be an opportunity to talk maybe a little bit about it, and that this could be something that if they or my students or any pre-service teacher um, was struggling with classroom management. This is just kind of my perspective of it, the research I've done, my experience in teaching. I mean, I've been working with kids for 20 years, and the way that I've run classrooms. Um, a disclaimer, I'm not perfect. I'm not implying that my way is the only way. And I think a very important part of becoming a teacher is owning what it is that you believe works for you, in terms of what works best for kids. So what works best for kids is usually your number one. But just because one person does it one way doesn't mean you have to do it that way. And I would not want anybody to ever think that the things that I say are the truth with capital T. I did a video about that, or that that's the only way to do it. I'm not perfect. I don't claim to be at all. But I will say that the things that we talked about in class, my students seemed really interested in. And I thought that it would be helpful maybe for other people, or even if they wanted to rewatch this, to remind them of some of the things we talked about and some of the main points that I made. The number one thing that, in my opinion, is important about classroom management is building relationships with students. There is a percentage of students that will not do anything for you if they don't like you. I remember my principal asking me, my very first principal, my very first year, asking me if he thought it was important that kids like me. And I was like, is this a trick question? Is this a real question? And I was like super scared to answer it. And I was like, I do think it's important for them to like me. And I was like, we don't have to be best friends. They don't have to agree with everything, but I think that we have needed a relationship. And he was like, I agree. He's like, I think it's essential. And I think that the research is coming out and we are learning that those relationships are everything. Building a relationship and what your relationship looks like with your student does not have to be, I teach in a specific way, and I tend to bring a lot of who I am to myself as a teacher and to my classroom. A lot of people claim that I have a lot of enthusiasm and a lot of energy, and I tend to be very um, vibrant. These are words other people use. I'm not saying all those things. That might not be you. And if that's not you and you think that that's the way you have to be, that's not real. Anytime, it won't work. It won't work. If you show up in a classroom pretending to be someone else, it doesn't work. There's always those kind of, moments where we channel people. I remember, there are days that we needed to get work done, and I was like, what would Hermione Granger do? There are people that I respect and look to, fictional or not, how would they handle the situation? And it's important, I think, to have people that we look to, but ultimately in teaching, that when it comes down to it, it's you and your students, and there's not going to be anybody to tell you what to do. So if you don't own who you are as a teacher in your classroom, they will see through it. So the first step is building those relationships, whatever that means to you. Things that I used to do um, as a teacher, and I still do, is I figure out what kids like, and I ask those questions about them. So if they walk in every day with a Lakers jersey on, I'm going to ask them if they like basketball. If they're if they change their hair color, if they wear something, a new pair of shoes, if they have a new notebook. I just kind of keep an eye on anything that shifts or changes, and then I ask them about it, and I get to know them, and I get to know what interests them. Having an interest survey at the beginning of the year is super helpful, and but it has to be done authentically. You have to authentically invest in your students. It can't be, I'm investing in so the mindset of, I'm going to care about my students because if I care about them, they're going to behave for me. That is not necessarily the best way to approach it, because the end result is you trying to control another person, and I'm going to learn how to control them by learning what they like. That's kind of manipulative in nature. It has to be authentic, and it has to be from your guts and your heart, that you care about your kids. They will know very quickly if you care about them or not. They will know that if it's a facade. So if you feel like the way you're interacting with your students is facade like you're forcing it, then it's probably not the way to go, because they will see through that, and they will not they will know that it's inauthentic. That comes with practice. I mean, if the best way to do this is to think about the way that you interact with people in general, and when you get to know somebody, what are the things you do to get to know them? Because it is essential that that student feels like that they are heard by you and seen by you. All kids, they want to be loved, they want to be heard. Everybody deserves to be seen and heard, and they want that. And they will, you making a tiny little comment about the sticker on their binder might just change their whole day. So the first thing with classroom management, I think, that I always did was I built a relationship with kids. My first year teaching, I had an influx of teachers show up at my door and say, "Let me see your roster." And then they listed out all the kids that were problem kids or troubled kids. And this kid is great. This kid's going to give you trouble. This kid's got a mouth, the whole bit. And so from that list, instead of going, "Oh crap, I got to watch out for that kid," my instinct was, "Oh crap, I need to really get to know this kid, because there's obviously something going on that other teachers believe that." And so I flipped it. I flipped the script. Instead of immediately getting on the defensive, knowing that this kid might cause problems in my class, I took it as an opportunity to get to know them better. And so it was actually kind of helpful for me to have that list, because I just did something different with it. I remember a kid walked in and he was like, "Do you know me?" And I was like, "No, I've never met you." And he's like, "Oh, I'm so and so." And I was like, "Okay." He's like, "Do you know my name?" And I was like, "No." To be true, I did. They had mentioned it, but I was like, "No, I don't know who you are." And he's like, "Really?" He's like, "You will." And I was like, "Okay, well, I'm Miss Masters. Nice to meet you." And kind of left it at that. So, zeroing on a student who is struggling and immediately getting defensive about it, and kind of that attitude of, "Well, they're not going to do that with me," is a defensive posture versus I wonder what's going on with them that makes other people think this about them. And I ended up being the teacher oftentimes that other faculty struggled with the kid, and they were fine with for me. People have opinions on why that was. I think it was because I gave them the benefit of the doubt at the beginning, which is another segue. I never gave seating charts at the beginning of a class. There are some people that do. There are some people that teachers that say, you don't smile until January. You don't, you run a strict ship, tight ship. That's what I was thinking. You run a tight ship at the very beginning, and to set, let them know how you feel. Let them know their expectations. Expectations are important. There is no doubt. But my expectation was, I didn't give a seating chart at the beginning. My classroom was always in a circle or a U shape. I never was a fan of the straight desk, because I can't see everybody's face, and I like to see people's faces. So I always had it in that kind of circle, and I didn't give a seating chart. and I told them at the very beginning of the year, I'm not giving you a seating chart unless you deserve one. I was like, I trust you. In this very moment, you walked in, you all have A's right now, and I trust you all to be good, upstanding citizens and to be good listeners and to do your best in this class. I trust you all. Only you can mess that up. I believe in all of you. You all have A's right now. Only you can make those choices. And very rarely did I have to deviate from that. That's how I started off every year. I did it for 7 years. There was again, and then a student asked me then in response to that, the seating chart. What happens if you have to go to a seating chart? So what happens if you don't have a seating chart and then all of a sudden you end up having to have one? He's like, do kids get pissed? And the one thing I've learned is that the kids tend to get pissed when they feel like they're being punished for somebody else's choices. Now, I will say that peer pressure is real, and if in a classroom thinks they're going to get in trouble, for example, if not everybody gets their stuff done, we stay after for lunch. That's not real. It's just an example. There are kids that will look at another kid and be like, "Dude, do your work. We don't want to get in trouble. Do your work." So that peer pressure sometimes exists. You have to wield that power well, and there's a balancing act to that. But it does exist. But more along the lines of if you've got one kid who's who's being disruptive, and moving him or her, I don't want to assume it's a him, sorry, him or her, then it's going to cause somebody else to move probably, which could make them mad. So that's a conversation. What I used to do is I used to pull the student that I was struggling with and be like, listen, I feel like you're not getting what you need out of class. I feel like you're not getting the learning you needed. I never had conversations necessarily about like behavior. You're being bad versus are you getting what you need? Are you distracted sitting here? Does this person distract you? How can I better help your learning? Sometimes it was all it took for that conversation. And sometimes it took like a code, like I'd come up with like a code when they were doing something that was distracting that I would go up and I'd put my hand on my desk or I'd give them a signal that would indicate to them that they needed to kind of come back from wherever they were spinning off to. That helped. Sometimes I didn't need to move them, but I was always very careful about where I moved them and then how it affected other students in that class, so that if two friends were sitting next to each other and they were good and were fine, I put this other student with them, that affects their flow too. So if I had to move a student or I had to shift things, I often did it in a way that I made sure to ask all students involved how this would work. And sometimes it was a matter of pulling the kid that isn't being distracted, is we're doing their work and saying, I need your help. Do you mind switching seats for a little bit? Are you willing to do that? Anytime you ask for their input, they're way more likely to do it. I mean, that's just common sense and common humanity. And usually they would. I mean, they're usually, when you ask nicely and you explain situations, they're usually really, really good about it. So and there was one time, I will tell the story, that I had a group of sophomores who didn't matter what I did, it just wasn't working. And because my classroom had a certain flow to it, it tended to be more discussion based. We did lots of different kinds of activities. It wasn't really a lecture, and it was in that kind of a safer circle. Kids liked it. The kids usually liked being in my room. This class struggled with that. So I went to my counselor and I asked for permission to change things. And I had an idea of what I wanted to do, and she was like, give it a try. I think I also talked to my principal about it. That's another thing. If you want to try something new, just go talk to a trusted principal or counselor. Make sure that somebody knows what you're doing. And so when this class walked in, all the desks were in rows. Their assignment was on the board. It was out of the literature book and out of the grammar book. I told them, and I was like, I started off they were all like, why are the desks, they get weird, why are the desks different? And I said, the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting different results. And I keep telling you guys the same things and nothing changes. So I needed to change. I wasn't working hard enough as a teacher. I needed to make a change. So now you're in rows. And they're like, well, we don't like this. And I was like, sorry, the other stuff wasn't working. I was like, your assignment's on the board. When you're finished that assignment, come up and give it to me and you'll go to the next assignment. It'll be quiet. You can listen to music for now. If anybody does anything, then I take that away. But this is what class is for now. You walk in, you get your assignment, you read your assignment, you do your assignment, you turn it in. That's what we're doing right now. And at first they were like, I don't think they believed me. And that's what we did for like 3 days. And it was a block schedule, so it was actually like a week. They'd walk in. After the class before them, I'd move all of the desks back. I'd get out all the lit books and all the grammar books, and this is how we're doing class. By the third day, by the end of that week, they're like, "We're sorry," and I was like, "And what are you sorry for?" Like, "We're sorry." Like they just were like, "We're sorry. We don't like this. This doesn't feel good anymore. We don't like." And I was like, "What are we gonna do then?" And so we came up with like a contract for the class that they agreed, that things were going to be different. And I really didn't have any problems after that. So sometimes you just got to mix it up and change things and shift things. And that's kind of the way that I dealt with that. I did learn too, my first year teaching, I had freshmen. My seniors never really gave me much of a problem for the majority. They were always, I think that seniors just are so grateful to be almost done that they're like, just tell me what I need to do. I want to get it. My group of freshmen, my first year, there was 13 in the class, and I just could not figure it out. Like, I just couldn't. All my tricks, nothing worked. I did like a token economy. I got like glass jars with marbles, and when they were good, they got a marble, and when they weren't, and it didn't work. Nothing did. Two things I think I learned from that. Well, the one thing that did work towards the end is there was a handful of good kids in there. There was really two that made things a little more complicated. And the ones that always did their work and were polite and respectful, I started slipping them notes throughout the class. And I would say, thank you for being good. Thank you for listening. Thank you for doing your work. Thank you for being respectful. And gradually they started kind of setting a different tone for the class, because they knew that I appreciated them and the work that they were doing. And then it became more of the majority were doing what they were doing, and the oddballs out were the ones that weren't. And that kind of shifted things. And now I've learned, though, actually, the next thing I learned, my last year teaching, I also taught freshmen. And it was a different kind of class. It was like a reading class, which I ended up making more of a like how to be a freshman class. Is it freshmen oftentimes require a lot more structure than older students because they're still learning how to be in high school. So I don't think I provided my freshmen with enough structure my first year teaching, because I myself am not a fan. I struggle with structure. I've gotten much better at it. But freshmen tend to crave it. They won't say that they do, but they work better with it and having very clear expectations. And I don't think I did a good job my first year teaching with that. But that was helpful. And having kind of a rhythm to each class in the way that it started. See, my seniors, it tended to be a little bit more fluid, and that worked for them. Didn't work for my freshmen. And so when it came to, problem students or kids that I struggled with or that were notorious for being difficult, weirdly enough, those are the ones I ended up getting along best with. And I think it's because I worked really hard to build a relationship with them and figure out what was hard. There was my last year teaching, a kid walked in. This is just an example. A kid walked in and he was having a bad day. Had nothing to do with me. That's a big part of a classroom management too, is controlling your own stuff and your own stress levels and being able to kind of detach from the fact that more than likely the kid, I do say the word kid a lot. I think hopefully that's okay. It's not inappropriate or like demeaning to call them kids. They're kids, young adults, teenagers. He was having a bad day and he was cranky, and they're allowed to be cranky. We're all allowed to be cranky. We're not allowed to take it out on other people though. So he sat down and I was like, what's wrong? And he was like, nothing. And he was just moody. And I was like, okay. So then I think I asked him to pick up a pencil. Like I think I asked him to like get out paper, and he got kind of sassy with me. And I was like, dude, what? What are you doing? And he was and I was like, come on. So I pulled him outside and I was like, what is wrong? What is going on? And he's like, I'm just having a really bad day. I was like, okay. why are you fighting me? I'm not the enemy. I'm on your side. I'm here for you. Why are you yelling at me? I didn't do anything. And he's like, I know, but, and I was like, dude, I'm here to help you. I'm not trying to get you in trouble. I just want you to do your work. I want to help you. I want to help you succeed. What do you need from me? And I was like, do you need a drink? Do you need to take a lap? And some kids need laps, and that's a thing. You talk to your admin about that. You talk to counselors. You talk to your support staff. Some kids need breaks. Humans need breaks. So if a kid needs to take a lap around the school, or go to the bathroom, or get a drink, why not? I've never understood why that's a problem. Are they? There are people that think that they're avoiding work, but work's not going to get done if they're a mess. Like, it doesn't get done. Yelling at a kid to get work done when they're mad doesn't get work done. That just pisses them off even more. So I think I signed his agenda, and he took a lap, and he came back, and he was better. First of all, it wasn't about me. He wasn't mad at me. He was mad about something else. And had I taken that personally, that would have gone a completely different route. Kids act a fool sometimes because they want out of your classroom because they don't want to be in school, or they just don't want to be there. So by sending them out of your room, you're giving them what they want. And there's a difference between needing a break and wanting out. And I think learning your students and who they are, I think is again, it goes back to who is this person and how do I deal with them in a one-on-one situation. I also used to give my classes breaks. We were on an 80-minute block, and that's a long time. It's a long time for adults. We don't make adults sit that long without going to the bathroom. Why would we make kids? So I would get up halfway through class, and they knew it. They knew that halfway through we would get a break, as long as everybody did what they were needing to do. We would get up together. We would quietly walk down the hall. People would use the bathroom. They'd get a drink, get a stretch. We'd walk back. It changed the dynamic of my classroom because kids weren't using the bathroom halfway through, because I was like, we got like 10 minutes. Can you give me 10 minutes? And they could. They saw an end in sight. They saw a stopping point in the middle of this that they just needed to get to it. 80 minutes is long. So that was another way that I think I managed, but I gave them breaks. I also didn't mind, this is what makes me controversial at times, but it's fine. I had no problem with them eating and drinking in class. Now, I would always joke and be like, don't bring in pizza unless you're going to share. But, you go to Maslow's hierarchy of needs. And if you're hungry, nothing's happening. If you're thirsty, nothing's happening. Again, kids didn't bring in 4-course meals, but if somebody had a bag of something they were snacking on, the reason it was a rule, I believe, is because it makes a mess in the classroom. That makes sense. I get that. And so I was always very careful to make sure the kids cleaned up their stuff. And if it was, then that. But I think that it's those little things, and that, I didn't talk at all about love and logic. And I took a love and logic class in college, and it really, really changed the way I looked at kind of discipline, if you will, and rewards. But the more choices you can give students, the better. And even if those choices are little, like, do you want to use a pen or a pencil? There are some, like, I fought with my tutoring kids about this. I'm like, I don't understand why you do math and pen. Like, it makes no sense. Why would you do math and pen? But if that's the only way they're going to get their math done, who cares? Like, really, who cares? It's still getting done. And so those tiny little choices you can give them gives them a little bit of autonomy so that you get to make the big choices. And it works. It works with little kids. It works with big kids. It works with adults. And I mean, I could do a whole video on love and logic too, but choice, autonomy, independence, that's what they want. They want to feel like they have a voice in this too. And if you give them a voice in little things, like the color of the pencil, the color of the highlighter, the book they read, a writing topic, the more choices they get that you're okay with, then when the big choices come, they're more willing to let you make them. It's called a trust bank. That's what Love and Logic calls it. So that's just a little bit about, classroom management and the way that I did it. That doesn't mean that everybody has to do it that way by any means, but if it's helpful, and if you have questions, obviously, comment, and I'll do my best to answer them. But that's, I know, the one thing that it's really hard to teach. Like, you can't teach classroom management. And I saw a post today, and this will be another video, that, kids don't, kids do what they see, not what they hear. And when you model certain behaviors in your classroom, they're more likely to respond to the modeling than just being told what to do. So much of the classroom management is keeping kind of like knowing how to keep yourself calm, if you will, and relaxed and detached. So you talk about loving kids and taking care of kids, but then how to detach from that at the same time, which seems like an opposite thing. But going, I love you, but I know this isn't about me, is a huge thing. And not taking everything personally, which is hard because and I always tell this to my new teachers, you will design the most beautiful lesson plan and it'll be perfect and it'll be cool and you'll be so proud of it. And they will be like, this is dumb. Why do we have to do this? And you'll be really sad. Or there's a book you love and you're going to give it to them and they're going to be like, this book's stupid. Why do we have to read it? And there's going to be a part of you because and then, I mean, I'm speaking mainly to English teachers, but it could be anything. If you're a math teacher and you freaking love triangles because triangles are cool, and your kid's like, triangles are dumb, there's a part of you that's like, why are you making fun of my thing? And being able to detach from that and go, they're not mad at me. It's that this just isn't their thing. So I always took that as, okay, so you hate this thing. Okay, you don't hate me. You don't like this thing. How can I make it more bearable? You don't need to love it. You don't need to love everything. How can I make it bearable? How can I help you not hate it? How can I make you move that over just a few ticks so it's not hate as much as it's kind of like, me, I'm okay with it. So I was always about moving it over on the spectrum and not, if they fall in love with something that I teach, neat. But if I can make it more bearable and make learning easier, and I would often ask, how can I help make this better? And then you get responses like, well, don't make us do it. And I'm like, yeah, it's not an option, guys. What else you got? What would make this easier? Well, it'd be easier if we could pick our topic. Cool, I'm down. You pick the topic. We can come up with it together. That's giving up control. It's giving up a little bit of control, but it's in order to maintain a level of, um, not expectation, but productivity. Do you want to be in control or do you want your kids to learn? Those are two very different things. And if the first instinct is, I want to control a classroom, I want you to meditate on that a little, because that idea of controlling others is interesting. And I tend to think of classrooms as spaces for people to learn and not places for people to be controlled. If you're interested in things like that, Foucault's Discipline and Punish, I think that's the name of it, talks a lot about the way that school systems utilize control and discipline and stuff to get what they want out of it. But that's a whole other topic. So hopefully this was helpful. I don't know, maybe. And if you ever have any questions, you can comment and I will do my best to answer it. And again, I am not perfect. I'm kind of an expert. I've been doing this for 20 years. That doesn't mean I know everything, and that doesn't mean that it always works. But these are the things that I've tried that have worked and the things that haven't. So hopefully it is helpful to you all. Thank you.